us, guys.
Guys, one last thing. If at all I have some internet connection, just switch off my video, okay? Like, it's pretty bad right now at my place. I think it's going to rain, that's why.
Okay. Are you going to switch on a video now, though? In the beginning, can you do it?
Yeah, sure.
One quick question. Wait, has the live recording started?
No.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to ask, like, the beginning introductory part, how long are we supposed to take? Like 2 minutes?
2 to 3 minutes max.
Yeah.
Don't take more than that.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll start.
Okay, I'll go live in 3, 2, 1. 1 second. Yes, we're live.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first edition of Placement Tales with the Changemakers Society. I am Deepika Karanji, co-founder at CMS. First of all, thank you so much for the overwhelming response. We had around 175 plus registrations in under 45 minutes, and that quickly rocketed to 257 registrations within the next hour. And then we started getting a lot of requests saying that we wanted to attend the webinar, which is why we decided to stream it as a YouTube live thingy today. So we captioned the webinar with a prep and pep talk. We definitely know it's going to be a prep talk, but we kind of hope that the stories that we bring to you and the journeys that we've been through will actually inspire you in some way and probably motivate you to try and start your journey as soon as you can. So the reason I actually started this initiative, the reason this idea came into my head was because I was also a first year, second year student. My general attitude towards life back then was ESA, ISA, something, chalega. So that was my seriousness towards anything in general. And then when I came into my third year, it got really stressful because companies started getting in. All my smart friends who are actually on the panel today, those guys started getting internships. And the problem is I didn't know where to even begin studying for data structures, algorithms, how to prepare for interviews, what is the resume preparation process, how do I get ready for all those HR rounds. So there was a lot of things that I didn't know. And luckily, I had a couple of seniors who guided me. And you guys are actually even luckier today because we have some really great speakers on the panel who bring to you a variety of experiences and they have different expertise. So putting all our stories together and our journeys together will hopefully give you some really good insights as to how you can start your journey and how you can begin your preparation. Before I hand it over to Richa, who is also the co-founder of Changemakers Society along with me, I just want to issue a small disclaimer of sorts. We are all in the 7th semester at PES University studying computer science. We received a lot of questions regarding product design placements, VLSI design, and EEE, and so on. So while we will definitely try to answer all your questions to the best of our abilities, we will limit our explanations and things like that we will basically draw from our own stories and our own experiences so as to not spread misinformation and to give you details as accurately as we can. And hopefully, we hope that you all will enjoy the session. And from next time, we will, if we do get positive feedback, we will definitely try and include panelists who have much more experience and are from various other departments as well. That's it from me, Richa. Over to you.
Yes, welcome all of you. And I can understand that there's a little bit of a lag between the audio and video. So please bear with us as long as you're able to hear us. I think that should be good enough for now. And okay, so let me just run you through the flow of the events that we have today. So we're going to start with each speaker talking about their story and telling us how they landed their internships or their full-time offers. Then the panelists will answer the questions that were filled in the pre-event form, which were filled by, I think, a lot of you. And also throughout the session, please feel free to use the chat box to give us your questions. And we have Harita there who's going to, sort it out for us and bring it forward to us. And please have a fun time. Don't hesitate in asking anything. No question is a dumb question. We've been there. We've asked the silliest of questions to our seniors. And nothing is silly, honestly, at this point. So just ask anything and thank you so much. So now let me introduce you to all the panelists that are present here. So let's start off with Anagha. So Anagha interned at Microsoft in summer of 2020. And because of her extremely brilliant work, she landed her pre-placement offer in July. And she'll be starting her internship as well as her full-time starting 2021. Then next we have Niharika. Niharika has published 4 research papers in domains like IoT, machine learning, deep learning, and she has secured a full-time opportunity at Walmart Labs. She also did her summer internship at CureFit, which was a great addition to her resume. Then Sharanya worked as a research intern at IIT Hyderabad during her second year, and she also got a research internship opportunity at Samsung in her third year summer. Then, last but not least, we have Deepika, who is currently working as an open source contributor at Mozilla. And she's worked as a project intern at HP, and she also landed her internship, not internship, full time opportunity at Walmart Labs along with Niharika. So, thank you guys for joining us and hope you have a wonderful session and, have a really good takeaways from this session. Um, Deepika, you're on mute.
Right. Problems. Okay. Anyway, so as I was saying, that was not the last introduction. We still have to introduce Richa. She worked as a summer intern at Grow for 2 months, and then she did some fantastic work over there, and that led her to land her pre-placement offer at Grow, which she has accepted. And she was actually one of the first 6 people in our batch to get a pre-placement offer and a full-time offer. So that was a pretty big deal, and I think we were all really proud of her at that point of time. So thanks for the introductions, Richa. Let's get started with this session. Our first speaker is Anagha Ananth. So Anagha and I actually started off together as summer interns in our first year at the Microsoft Innovation Lab. And later we joined the CCBD as research interns. And today it just makes me really proud to see her, doing her work at Microsoft and getting a full-time there. So Anagha, can you take us on your story, your journey? Can you tell us how you went from being an 8-pointer in your first year, to actually securing a pre-placement offer at the very sought-after company, Microsoft?
Thank you so much, Deepika, for that wonderful introduction. So, hi everyone. I'm Anagha. I study at PES University, and like Deepika mentioned earlier, I'm in my 7th semester currently. So, I'm interested in cybersecurity and pen testing, but I'm open to learning anything new. So, I was also in touch with a couple of seniors, and they were the ones who informed me that companies are going to start coming for internship placements in third year. And that was why I started prepping during my second year summer a little bit. And I think my first success was getting my resume shortlisted when I applied for Google off campus. However, those interviews did not go well and I didn't move on further. But that was a really good learning experience for me, because that was when I realized that I need to start practicing competitive coding at a faster rate than I was earlier. So I started practicing then, and rather than going all in at once, I made sure that I made coding a regular habit. So even if I was doing one problem, I'd make sure that I was consistent over time. And then I applied for Microsoft off campus in the end of September, and I got through the coding round, and I got in touch with more seniors to understand how to practice further for the other interview rounds, and they were really helpful. And after which I had 3 more interviews, and I received the good news that I had gotten my internship there. And I worked at the internship, and I made sure that I was dedicating time to working every day on the internship, and I was making sure that I was asking my manager and my mentor doubts and questions, and things that were not necessarily related to my project either. And 2 months later, they'd informed me that I'd gotten my full-time offer. So one thing I took away from this whole experience is that practicing coding is it's not something that you can learn in a short span of time and it will stay with you forever. It's something that you have to keep practicing over and over again. It's something that's important to make a habit. So over to Deepika.
Oh, thanks, Anagha. That was a really great story. Could you tell us more about how your interviews went at Microsoft? You said you got through 3 rounds, if I'm not wrong. So could you elaborate on those rounds quickly?
Right. So the first round of interview was actually on video call, and I was given the interviewer actually went through my resume and saw that I had done a project related to DFAs, that is automata theory, and he asked me a competitive coding question based on that, and it was really nice because when I was stuck, he actually kind of hinted me to think in the right direction, and that was where I took another lesson that they don't expect you to know everything. Like given a hint, if you're able to reach the solution, uh, that's good too, because not everyone knows the correct algorithm to use in any given situation. So what's important is once you learn the new information, how you're able to apply it. So that was my first round, and my other two rounds I got to have my interviews on the Microsoft campus, which was again a great experience because the campus itself was so great. And again, over there I had a question related to linked lists and binary trees, and even then I couldn't get the answer directly. I needed the interviewer to prompt me, and given that I was able to clear the rounds. And the last HR round, I was asked about the projects that I did, the projects on my resume, what was my favorite project, and what I'd like to do if I were to get into Microsoft.
Oh, that's
Yes.
great. That's great to hear. We'll take up more questions with you afterwards. I think a lot of people have asked questions regarding pre-placement offer and so on. So, Richa, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Anagha. That was very informative. I'm sure everyone would have taken away a lot from that. So next we'd move on to Sharanya. So Sharanya is someone I know from my first year of college, and she has been extremely hardworking when it came to maintaining her grades or even to getting work done. And because of that, she applied to IIT Edge for a research project during her summer of 2018, if I'm not wrong, and she landed it, and she worked under one of the most brilliant professors from India, and I think she'll be better off explaining what she did there, followed by landing her summer internship the next summer at Samsung, which is again a very, very big deal. So Shania, over to you. Please explain your journey to us.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction, Richa. So, I'm here to talk about two of my experiences, two very different experiences actually, because in my second year summer, I went to IIT Hyderabad to do like a pure research internship. And the next summer, I went to a corporate environment, and it was completely different from what I did in the previous summer. But one thing I'd like to say is that in my second year, my major concern was I had no idea what I want to do because I just finished the basics of computer science. Like everyone has done DBMS, everyone's done data structures, algorithms. Like those are the fundamentals that every person from every field in computer science should know. So once I finished that, I was like, what next? Like, what am I going to do after this? So I had like this kind of anxiety to like figure my career path out, and I was like, okay, I can do that with practical approach, like through an internship or something. So I actually went hunting that summer. I went to every professor in college, and I was like, okay, can you give me like a problem? I'll work with like a few friends of mine. And I think like all of us like try to make teams, and we were like, okay, let's do some project under some professor. And it was pretty mad. Like it was a lot of like stress because I really wanted to figure out what I like. And I actually came in touch with a senior who told me that why don't you try for like this kind of internships that IITs offer. It's a research internship, and you'll probably like get a different experience, and it'll be a good exposure. So I asked her like the method as to how to apply and all of that, and she even gave me like a small recommendation so I could directly approach the professor and like have an interview directly with him. So after that, I approached the professor, and the funny thing is, I did not know what the professor's domain was when I approached him. Like I had no idea what that domain meant, and he was like, "Yeah, so I work with compilers," and he was like, "You must have heard of the subject," and I was like, "No, I haven't." And he was like, "Okay, fine," and he thought I was a third year student, so he asked me like, "How have you not heard of it? Like, which year are you in?" And I said that I'm in second year, and he was like, straight on my face, he said, no, I don't take second year students. So I was pretty demotivated, but I was like, okay, you know what, let me sell myself out over here. So I explained to him everything that I know, like in my 2 years of engineering, what I've learned. I explained the entire concept to him, and he was like, okay, you seem pretty passionate, so let's see whether we can get you some project. And he was like, I'll come back to you. So he took like about 1 month and a half to get back to me. And finally, he came up with a problem statement that was ML oriented. Okay. And machine learning is so daunting for anybody who's starting up with it. Like, it is probably one of the hardest things that everyone wants to learn, but it's really hard to learn. So the minute I saw it, and I was like, oh God, what is this? And later, I was like, okay, fine, let me just give it a try. So I did some research work myself. Like, I Googled stuff, like very basic questions. Literally, what is machine learning was my first Googling question. And then later he wanted me to like give a presentation of my understanding of like the problem statement of the domain as such. And yeah, so he really liked my presentation. And then I got the internship opportunity. So I moved to Hyderabad for 2 months to work on that problem statement. And the main thing is, going there and working on that actually defines most of the work that I'm doing after that summer, because it made me realize how much I actually like data science and machine learning and like that entire concept of it. And then I came back after that summer in my fifth semester. I had such a clear vision, because that's when in fifth semester is when you get to pick your own subjects. And from fifth semester, all my subjects have been data science oriented. Like, it has been big data, deep learning, machine learning. And I think that gave me a lot of clarity at that point. So yeah, that's how my first internship was helpful for me. Like, it gave me some clarity in third year as to what kind of subjects to pick. Coming to my second internship, very luckily, my second internship was also like in Samsung R&D, which is like Research and Development Center. And my problem statement was actually very similar to my previous internship. Like, they go hand in hand. So it was a lovely experience in Samsung as well.
Yes, thank you, Sharanya. I think that was very informative. And I think, can you talk about your interviews that you had for your Samsung internship and how you landed it? And maybe a kind of questions that were asked.
Yeah. So in fifth sem is when companies started coming. And I think I had this weird sense of confidence that my coding is really nice and it's really good. I don't need to prepare much at all. Like, I had this sense. And then about 4 or 5 companies came, and I was nowhere making it to the list. And that actually stressed me out so much. So that entire fifth sem was just me every day trying to figure what can I do to get to these interviews. And it was extremely stressful. So I just decided that, you know what, let me not stress so much. Let me take a break. So December, I actually took a break. I went out with my friends. I chilled that entire December. Then Jan, when I came back before the interviews, I decided to at least go through like core concepts. So I did that. And Samsung was the first company that came in sixth semester. It came 4 days after college reopened. And the first round was an online round, and that was something which was of a basic coding level, so I could clear that. So once I cleared that, I had this sense of confidence. I actually went through like sites that talk about previous interview questions asked in Samsung, and I prepared like based on that. There are many sites that I could cite, like Geeks for Geeks is there, Lead Code is there. So I went to these sites, I filtered out questions that were asked by this company, and I had 2 technical rounds and 1 HR round in Samsung. Both the technical rounds were actually pretty daunting, because some of my smartest friends were part of that round, and I was like, how am I going to compete with them? But it worked out. Both the rounds went well. And the most important thing is, I think technical knowledge is really important, but there are so many other factors that also matter, like the way you present yourself in the interview, the way you talk to the interviewer, and like just this so much more than just having the knowledge of the subject. So I think both of it helped me quite a bit, and the interviews went really well, and I got the offer.
Yes, thank you so much, Sharanya. Now we'll ask you more questions. I'm sure there are a bunch that Harita would have collected, but over to Deepika now.
Deepika.
Deepika.
Yeah, so thanks, Sharanya. That was really cool. Next, we have Niharika. Niharika actually was with me during the entire Walmart Labs interview process. It was very long, 3 days, 5 rounds. It was quite intense, but here we are. She's actually a hardcore researcher. When I asked her to, do this talk, I thought she had only 2 research papers, and then I was trying to write introductions about everyone, and then I realized that she has gotten 2 more research papers accepted into really good conferences this summer during the lockdown. So she's really into research, and she's a hardcore machine learning, deep learning expert, at least in my opinion. So Niharika, could you tell us more about how you developed the interest in researching and how you chose your projects and how you get papers published?
Thanks a lot, Deepika. First off, I should say that it's really great to be addressing such a huge audience today, and I hope this turns out to be a good learning opportunity for all of you. And so I'll quickly just start off with my journey, and I'll try to keep it short because I'm sure you have a lot of questions to ask. So basically, I'll start off with my very first research experience. And my first exposure to research started with as an intern at PS Innovation Lab in the summer of first year. It was called the Microsoft Innovation Lab back then. And this was the very first time I was introduced to machine learning, especially machine learning in gaming, etc. And most of it was new. And I did some courses online to understand its fundamentals. I read some blogs, articles to understand its application, because it felt like understanding the use cases of the project is very much necessary to actually like the research you're doing. Uh, and even though I did this, I was slightly, initially confused as to what projects to pick later, and so it was kind of difficult to start off. So I decided to keep myself open to different research areas before diving deep. So that's when I took advantage of the mini project that our department introduced, where I worked on a project in astronomy with Dr. Snehanshu Saha. And because the reason why I picked this project was because I always believe that research is something that should come out of interest rather than just pursuing it. And from when I was young, I was always fascinated with space, planets, and answers to such answers to these questions, like if life really exists beyond Earth. So that's one of the reasons why I picked up this project. And slowly I started off, reaching out to professors for projects, understood their research interests, looked into their, domains of expertise, either online, LinkedIn, ResearchGate. I'm sure there are a lot of areas to look at. So I also tried to read some of the published work before I reached out to them. So that's when the journey of research kind of started. Slowly, I felt like I want to understand how the industry works and how the projects are done there. That's when I became part of CCBD and worked on a cloud computing project. Then slowly, came back to machine learning and deep learning. Worked with professors like Dr. Nagpal and Badri Prasad sir, where most of the projects revolved around GANs and like core machine learning stuff. And I know, apart from all of this, there was this internships and etc. On the other hand, that was happening at college. So I started my prep with solving some coding questions and some problems that that might be asked in interviews. So I started with that process. And but apart from that, these are the two tracks that I always had in mind. One is research and other one is competitive coding. So yeah, I guess that's it from my side. But I would want to say one thing, that this webinar is a great initiative by you guys from the Changemakers Society. So thank you so much for having me here.
Thanks, Niharika. A couple of questions. So you said you approached professors by doing some background work yourself. So could you tell us more about how you get professors to give you projects which could potentially result in papers?
Right. I think the first place to start off your research work is to approach professors. First you should always look out for their research interests, their domains of expertise, and you should always read their papers before directly approaching them. So understand what these projects are, what they've worked on, and have a personal conversation kind of a thing with them when you go meet them. So, but always don't barge in. Email them first, and then have a kind of a good conversation with them first, and then start off with how you would want to do projects under them.
Okay.
Professors kind of look into some some aspects in students, like if they're good at coding and how dedicated and motivated they are into research, because research is something that is not done in like 1-2 days. It's all stretched for like 6-8 months and sometimes even a year. So that's a huge process. So they want to know how dedicated you are. So yeah, I think that's a good way to approach professors. And I feel like webinars right now, because of COVID, you should make use of webinars and seminars that happen, because you can easily network with these kind of professors and reach out to them for projects.
Okay, that's great. I think we have a lot more questions regarding how you should choose projects, application-based research versus just theory-based research and things like that. We'll get to that in the Q&A session. Thank you so much, Niharika. Next, our next speaker is Richa. I've known Richa from day zero in college, not even day one, like before college started, like one day before I got to know her. And since then, I think we've done pretty much all the initiatives together because we have similar problems in life and interests as well. And I just like to say that, CMS is what it is today because of the strong partnership that the both of us have forged together. And I'm really happy to have her here with us. And I want her to share her story with us today. So, Richa, can you tell us how you landed your internship at Grow and the consequent pre-placement offer that you got?
Yes. So as I think all of us went through, I was totally unaware. I had been told by seniors that, companies are going to come in the next 2 weeks, in the next 1 week. And I'm just like, yeah, okay, whatever, it'll come. And then suddenly, I think it started off with Microsoft. And then I think reality hit us, all of us. And we honestly were at a state where we didn't know where to start. And I think that's where you go to your seniors and you're like, please help us, through this. So I think my first, so I faced a rejection before I actually got Grow, which I am actually very glad about because it was a great learning experience. I think you learn from your failures before you actually land a success. So I was got shortlisted for Morgan Stanley. But unfortunately, I think the way I sold myself wasn't up to mark. And also, I wasn't prepared enough. As Anagha mentioned, you should make coding a habit, which I did not have back then. And because of which there were certain gaps which between what the interviewer was asking and what I was trying to tell him. So I think that helped me learn a lot about where I'm lagging and what I need to work on. And I think I slowly picked from there, not at a very fast pace again, but I slowly picked from there. And Grow came as a very big surprise because it was shortlisted not based on coding tests, but based on my resume. So I thought that, oh, okay, fine, my resume at least stands out, which is a good thing. And maybe if I can get my coding up to mark. So I remember even like preparing for that. I think I got the news one day before it. And I prepared a little bit about the coding, went through it online. And Grow being a startup didn't really have many resources online. So I think that was very scary for me because I'm like, at least for other companies like Morgan Stanley and everything, I had some resources. Right now, I don't have that. But, I just went with a positive mindset. I went with the attitude that, treat the interviewer as a friend. I think that's very, very important because that's something I learned from my previous interview where at Morgan Stanley, I treated him more with so much respect, which you obviously need to. But then because of that, I was scared. I was intimidated, which kind of hinders you from saying what you actually want to, what's on your mind. But this time I went with a very open mindset. I knew it's a startup, so it's a very young crowd that's going to be there. So I went, approach him as a friend, explain all my projects, everything that I have on my resume. And that's where we started off during that interview. And I think because of the friendly conversation, things went on very smoothly. And I think that's why I was able to express myself as I would to a friend, which is very clear and free flowing. Because I think a lot of times when you're talking even to professors or teachers, you start to mumble. But when you talk to a friend, you just say whatever you want to, whatever's on your mind. So I think that really helped me. And yeah, I think I got the news. They immediately told us that they've selected the 7 of us. And I think the PPO was mainly because of the work we've done. So we were 7 of us who made it through to their internship, and 6 of us got our pre-placement offers. And yeah, as Deepika mentioned, we were, I think, the first company to actually receive our PPOs. But the reason was because we started very early as well. So yes, I think that's about my journey on how I got Grow.
Oh, that's great. I was actually with Richa at Grow. I'll tell you that story soon. It's a pretty embarrassing story. But yeah, so Richa, Sharanya was talking about how interviews, and even you spoke about how interviews are more of a holistic process and not just coding and coding. So, how did your resume stand out specifically with respect to the kind of social work that you've done with CMS? Did that help you in any way?
Yes, definitely. I think more than anything, a lot of interviewers are intrigued by your resume in your extracurricular field, because when it comes to coding, they've seen your coding round, you've cleared it. Obviously, you have certain idea. It's not that you. Otherwise, you can't clear coding rounds. Honestly, if you don't have an idea, you can't. So, the first thing that I think during my Morgan Stanley, it was more of a coding based approach. He wanted to know more about my projects, but when it came to Grow, they were actually interested in my extracurriculars. So when I talked to them about CMS, they were very intrigued. They talked to us about where we have represented CMS, what we've done, what's the work we've done. And I think that really had helped me have an edge over the other candidates, because not only was I doing CMS, I was also working with Art Risha. I've done theater in the background, so I've done worked with a lot of projects. I think that intrigued them. He in fact asked me, oh, okay, can you explain about, what did you do as your as an actor? So it says as an actor in my resume, and I've worked with a couple of plays there. He's like, oh, can you please explain this, and can you tell me what you worked with there? And I think these are things that people want to learn, and they see your soft skills from here and your other skills, that you're not just bound to coding, or you're not doing it for the sake of getting into a company, and you have holistic approach to your entire life as a matter. And then he talked to me about how what am I doing for AT, for Atmatrisha, which is our techno-cultural fest, and what is my role there. And he was very intrigued, and then he asked me like a coding question, and I think that was my experience. But I think because my resume was I think certain companies, I think you have to really look at what the company is looking for. Like if you go to a company like, say, Samsung or even Walmart Labs, they look for a more technical resume. But for me, I knew Grow being a startup, they wanted me to have a mix. So for me, I really have my resume. That time was all over the place. I've kind of concised it now. But it had like all my technical experiences with my non-technical experiences. So I think CMS was a huge boon that time, because even for that Atma Frisha, we were working with CMS and AT, and I think that really helped me helped me have an edge over the other candidates, I think. Yes.
That's great. Thanks, Richa. Yes, you got to interview me now.
Okay, I know, yes. Okay, Deepika, thank you so much. Okay, let me start. Where do I start with Deepika? So Deepika, if I know Shana from day zero, I know Deepika from day -5, because she was one of the first people I met when I entered PS University, before even college started, because we had a session with Professor NSK. And she was this super dedicated. Even during that entire course, she would send mails to the professor and be like, so can you explain this, can you explain that? And I think since then, ever since, I think even our friendship, as she said, has grown, and we had similar interests throughout, and it was very easy and a free flowing conversations with each other, and we had similar, as she said, life problems. But then, yeah, she was with me at Grow, and I remember telling her one day before, I'm like, you know what, let's get this together. And she will tell you what she did during that interview. But I'm super proud of her. She landed herself at Walmart Labs, and I think no one is better than her to explain her journey. So over to you, Deepika. Deepika,
Okay.
can't do this.
Right. Thanks, Richa. So, first of all, the course that Richa was talking about in day -5, the only reason I was enthusiastic about that course is because I was a fresher. I knew nobody in college, and I was straight out of 12th grade. I was a kid, so I just wanted to make a good impression, which is why I think I just started trying to butter the professor, so to speak. But that motivation didn't really last long, because, like I mentioned in the introductory remarks, I really didn't care about anything in my first and second year. And I had a pretty bad GPA as well. Mine was an 8.54 in my first sem, 8.83 in my next sem. And I missed out on scholarships. And all the guys in the panel have been consistently getting scholarships since the first semester. So that was a small motivation that I had. Okay, you know what? I should probably try and do it, which is why I started studying for ISAs, ESAs, and all of that in my third year. But that apart, like I was talking about earlier, in my third year, a couple of seniors actually did tell me in my second year summer, like just before the fifth semester started, that companies are going to be coming in. So for our batch, at least the companies came in November. So for the guys who are listening on call right now, you probably have another month or something to prepare, okay? Because I didn't take it seriously. I felt like, okay, you know what, companies are going to come and go, it's not something I'm really interested in. And that was when I was divided between whether I want to immediately go into post graduation and do my MBA in finance. Sounds really typical, I know, but that was something that I was really interested in, because I still do a lot of debating and model United Nations. I specialize in the Economic and Social Council. So that was a line that I wanted to potentially take, which is why I didn't take preparing for internship seriously at all. And I didn't practice even one coding round. I didn't know what stacks were. I didn't care about object-oriented programming. And then Microsoft came in November. That was the first company. And our professor actually said, it was a big seminar hall, big data class. Dr. KVS was teaching. And when the circular came, he said, okay, listen, only 5 of you maximum are going to get in. The rest of you are just not going to get in. So just don't worry, focus on the class right now. Okay. So that was the first thing that he said. And I still had the guts to, actually think, oh, maybe I'll be one of those lucky 5. Okay. Turns out I had no luck. I had no brains also that time. I legit didn't know anything. Okay. And eventually companies like Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, and Intuit, and all these companies started coming in. People started getting internships. And the problem is, I still didn't take it seriously. But more than that, I didn't know where to start, okay? Because a lot of seniors were telling me, set yourself some goals on Geek for Geeks, do a lot of lead code. There are so many questions over there. They're all categorized with the relative ease, medium, hard, and so on. So try and do that. I tried a couple of questions, but it wasn't really interesting to me at that point of time. And I also had some seniors telling me, you know what, don't worry. Even if you don't get any internships, you can always study really hard for placements in the coming, when others are doing internships, you just sit at home and study for placements, and that will get you through. Okay. So these were the kind of promises or comforts that I was leaning back on, which is what stopped me from studying for internships. And then December holidays came, which is when people like Sharanya and all, they took a break and they actually went back to studying. And my problem is, I still didn't do it. I just didn't feel like doing it, because I still believe that GMAT and CAT is something that I wanted to write, and I didn't want to sit for placements at that point of time. But that's when I, luckily, a core course for me was cloud computing, and that subject really got me hooked. It got me really interested. I was excited about scalability, distributed systems. That is something that I really enjoyed working on. We had a gigantic project that all of us suffered with, but I really enjoyed it. So that is when I realized, you know what, I've studied for 20 years. Maybe it's time to utilize whatever skills that I have gained over the past 20 years and try and see how I will do in a workplace environment before I try to do my master's or postgrad or, higher studies, basically. So that's when I took stuff seriously. By the way, I still didn't have an internship, and all my friends had already gotten their offer letters from Morgan Stanley, CureFit, Grow, Microsoft. I'm basically talking about the guys on the panel, right? So at that time, I still had nothing. And this is an opportunity that a lot of people didn't take seriously, but let me tell you about it. So there's a professor called Professor Falachandra. He is a professor at the Cloud Computing and Big Data Center at PES University. This is specific to the PES students. So what Professor Falachandra has is a tie-up with HP. I think it's called Innovation or Catch Them Young program. I don't remember the exact name. So this is a process where HP comes in and gives a couple of webinars, workshops, and things like that. And it's mostly a systems company. So what they do is, after giving all the workshops, people who have attended and learned things from those workshops will actually be selected by Professor Falachandra and his team. And the shortlisted students will get to work as project interns with HPE. A lot of people didn't take this seriously, and even I didn't. In fact, I told sir that I will not be taking part in this process. I was initially very interested, and then I figured, you know what, I'm probably not going to do it, because they had a clause which said that if HP does like your work that you do as a project intern, and you eventually do get a pre-placement interview and eventually an offer, you have to take that offer, and HP qualifies as a tier 1 company. Okay. And tier 1 in our college right now is 9 plus lakhs. Okay. But most of the other companies that come in will, the creamy companies, they'll be like 20 plus lakhs, 15 plus, things like that. So that is when I was very childishly money-minded. I was quite immature, and I said, "Oh, you know what? I'm probably worth more than that." I was damn weird. Okay, so I was like, I don't want to do this. But eventually, Dinkar sir and Falachandra sir knocked some sense into me, and I was like, okay, you know what? It's always good to do a project as an internship, because first of all, I didn't have anything on my resume at that point of time, and so I went ahead with the HP project with HP as a project intern, and that was a brilliant internship. I really enjoyed it. I worked on securing containerized applications. We built a pipeline and stuff. So it was basically really cool. And the best part about that is people actually got pre-placement interviews. They actually got pre-placement offers because of HPE. And right now there are so many people in my batch who are struggling because they're not able to, unfortunately, clear the interview runs for whatever reason. But this is a path that all of you must take seriously and talk to Professor Falachandra about, because it's a wonderful backup to have. But that apart, I actually did get started in a bunch of other things, and to be honest, I only prepared for my for my interviews and stuff in the 2 months. Lead Code, Geek for Geeks, that's what I followed, and obviously YouTube tutorials as well. And eventually, I started doing open source contributions to Mozilla as well, and that was another wonderful journey. And eventually, all these other small side things that I did helped me come up to par with all the guys who did research papers, internships, and so on, which is kind of what I credit my full-time offer that I have right now to. So I think I spoke for too long. Sorry, but thanks.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I think a lot of people can benefit from it because, again, a lot of us started off really early. And then for you to start off late and still bag such a wonderful opportunity is amazing. So, can you tell us about, your how you got into open sourcing? Like, what motivated you to start contributing to open source, and what is? I think a lot of us hear open source, but we don't know where to start, so we don't even like venture into it. So, can you please tell us about that?
Sure. So, as interns, as summer interns, SD interns, what a lot of my other friends, you guys on the panel as well, what you will get to experience is working with new people in a team, understanding how to write production level code, and then sending it, merging it with the main code base and things like that. So you basically get real world experience. And I figured that is something that interviewers who are, coming for full-time roles will look for in any candidate. And since I was already too late into trying to find an internship, I looked for the next best thing that I could do by sitting at home. And that's when I came across open sourcing. A couple of my friends had done a bit of open sourcing for Rapids, which is some CUDA libraries as well. So motivated by that, I actually figured I'll start doing some backend work for Mozilla. And open sourcing can be a really daunting task because there is no clear course for it, or there is no YouTube video which will give you, which is a one-stop solution to everything. You need to seek people out on various Slack channels. First, you got to decide what repository you want to contribute to, what project really excites you. So I'm an avid user of Firefox. I don't use any other browser, even though it's sometimes problematic and Chrome would be a better option. I always use Firefox. So I figured, Mozilla is something that I'd want to contribute to. And eventually I got connected with those guys on this platform called Bugzilla, which is where they post the bugs related to Mozilla products. And I got on that. I figured out where I should go for connecting with the mentors at Mozilla. And then I found some really good mentors who helped me. I picked out some very simple, basic level bugs. It's good first issues. And it took me 3 weeks to merge my first fix into the code base. And eventually it just started taking me about 2-3 days maximum to do more bug fixes. So open sourcing is mostly about determination and just perseverance, because it's very hard, and it's honestly a thankless job because you're not getting paid. You're just doing it for the benefit of the community. But the learnings that you get, and the happiness that you get by merging your code into something that other people will be using is, I think it's a fantastic feeling. So I think we can have maybe another session on open sourcing with people who have actually gone and done internships at GSOC and Outreachy and things like that in the upcoming sessions.
Yes, definitely. And okay, so now I think this question I'll shoot out to both you and Niharika, because both of you are interviewed at Walmart Labs. And I think this is a question a lot of us will have. So your backgrounds are very different. She comes from a very research oriented background as compared to you, which you're interested in more application based approach, right? So how was your interview experience different? Since you were, I mean, you're telling us about your experience, let's go back to Niharika and then I'll come back to you. So, Niharika, can you tell us about how your interview journey was and what made you stand out as compared to the other candidates that were shortlisted?
Sure. So actually, my interview prep kind of began before like summer, and it involved a lot of I mean I had to improve a lot about on my coding skills. There are various platforms, and I was slightly nervous of the entire process. So the process involved at least for Walmart and CureFit, it was a very exhaustive process. Like for CureFit, I had like 3 rounds, one technical and one HR, and my interviews mainly focused on optimizing problems given to me in terms of space and time complexities. But no matter which interview you're giving, I feel like the interviewers are usually very friendly, and they try to calm the situation. So that was one really good experience for me, CureFit, and even for Walmart. So I started my preparation, and as Sharanya said, coding is just not the only thing that's there. You should also like involve yourself in how you're communicating to them, how you're delivering your thought process, and your step by step analysis. All that comes really handy, and comes into picture while you're giving your interviews.
Can you like tell us a little bit about maybe the kind of questions and everything? Like as I was talking about, like what made you stand out? Like what do you feel like you could have done? I'm sure you went through a lot of interview experience. So can you talk about what made you stand out at Walmart during the interview, and how did you sell yourself probably to the interviewer? And I think that's something that a lot of questions we were asked about that. And yeah.
That's a very good question, actually. First off, I'll talk about what kind of questions were asked in my interviews. So, most of these companies, like these big companies, they concentrate on like dynamic programming, binary search trees, and all the core concepts. And apart from that, even your subjects, I mean concepts like OS, computer networks, DBMS, all of them come into picture. So that's about my technical interviews aspect, and how I stood out was I feel like my research experience really helped me there. So they were pretty happy to see that I have actually took some time out to give my work, I mean to give my time to various research topics and understand various fields out there. And the whole intention was that they looked at me as if I was looking for innovation, and that's what they wanted as well. So they saw that if I've done enough research projects, she's probably enough to be dedicated and motivated to work for us. So that was always a plus point for me. And I would stress on the point that I had two HR kind of rounds. Like one was a managerial round and one HR round. Both were interactive, so there was no technical questions asked at all. So they just wanted to understand who the person you are, and what are your other interests other than like coding interviews and like coding research, etc. So that's when I spoke about my hobbies, and like I'm a dancer, so I talked about performances I have done, and my hobbies, like I started baking because of COVID. So these are such points that I mentioned and they could relate to. And luckily my HR, so she was also into completely baking, so we had a small chat about how this works. So yeah, so basically that's something that helped me stand out.
Yes, again, yeah, as I mentioned, like be in a very friendly mindset with your interview. I think that's very important. Deepika, can you tell us about your how it was different from Niharika's?
Right. Do I switch on my video or no?
I think for most of them are hearing our audio, so I think you can just go
Okay,
ahead
okay.
with that. Yeah.
No, they said some lag, no? Okay, okay, fine. Yeah, so for me, mine was mostly application only. So they started off with asking me some basic data structures and algo question. One was a stack question, and the other one was a 2D matrix question. And then it went on. Okay, so a lot of people have asked, do they give any option between writing C, C++, and all? During the online coding rounds, yes, C++ is definitely a must, but later on in the interviews, for me at least, I was just asked to write some pseudocode. And mostly since mine was application based, I felt like they were testing me based on how I think rather than how well I've mugged up a sum or how well I've practiced sums on Geek for Geeks or Leet Code. And so I was asked a couple of puzzles, and I think puzzles are really important because most of the interviews have some random puzzles which aren't available on Geek for Geeks and stuff. So try maybe doing interview bit and India Bix for aptitude, and this one puzzle questions. And I was asked some questions like, okay, there's a random number generator which generates 0 and 1 randomly with equal probability. So now using that particular function, how will you generate random numbers with equal probability from 1 to any given input n? So these were questions that I didn't have the direct answers to. So always learn how to get the approach of it rather than try and solve every question that is there on every coding platform in the world. That's just not possible. So the approach is important. But mainly how I stood out was, I guess, my open sourcing really helped me. And also in Walmart, they really looked for a holistic kind of person who knows how to manage their time well. Honestly, I don't know how to manage my time that well and all, but I have done a lot of internships and projects with respect to economics as well. I worked as a management intern to develop a financial aid model at Dexterity Global. I also worked as a SME for economics in Pesu.io, and I have a lot of economics and debating background as well. So that was something that really excited them for some reason, and they wanted to know more about it. So that was some of the extracurriculars that I was asked in HR. But I would say definitely my open sourcing helped me stand out, compared to the other people.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, now let
Uh,
me. Deepika, can you take forward from here?
yeah, definitely, definitely. So, okay, so let's see. Okay, so Anagha, could you talk about maybe the CGPA requirements and cutoffs that companies will have? How much preparation is required for interviews? What kind of projects add value to your resume? And what can we do as second year students to work towards placements? Just answer like roughly whatever you think is it.
Yeah, hi. So, your first point about CGPA, this is purely based on my experience, but from what I've seen, most companies have a cutoff of 7 CGPA, and there are a very few, like 2 or 3 companies that have an 8.5 cutoff. So, I would say that CGPA is not that much of a priority, but that doesn't mean that you should go ahead and ignore your coursework, because what you learn in your third, fourth, fifth, and even sixth semesters are very important subjects like operating systems, compiler design, DS and algorithms, as I'm sure you all know. So they're really important subjects, and learning them as part of coursework really helps you sort of understand those concepts, which will also help you further in interviews and in the coding rounds. The next question that you asked me about projects. So, unlike so I wanted to mention 2 things. One is that I did not do an internship in my second year summer, other than the one at the cloud computing and big data center in our college. But I didn't do a corporate internship, and uh, I'm working on only one research project for the past 1.5 years almost right now. So, what I'd say with respect to projects is that uh, it's okay if you don't have great projects, but what's important is that in what you've done, you should know all the projects inside out. So, once you're able to communicate to the interviewer, or on your resume, if you're able to show the projects that you've done, um, they don't look for extraordinary projects, because everyone's aware that we're still in our BTech, we're still working at an undergraduate level, but what they expect is that you know what you're working on and you have the ability to learn. So if you're able to demonstrate that through your projects, that would be a win for you. um, I didn't catch the other question you asked me, Deepika.
No, that was pretty much it about projects and how you prepared for interviews, which I think you covered. So thanks. Also, one more point to note: while most of the companies have a cutoff of 7 on paper, from my experience, because I sat through the placement process and was rejected multiple times, 8.5 is the sweet spot. 8.5 plus. Lesser than that, some of the companies, though they have a cutoff of 7 on paper, while they shortlist students for being able to write the online coding round itself, they'll just remove those people with lesser than 8.5. So try and keep it above 8.5.
Yeah, always try
Okay.
and maintain your this thing GPA, because I think even our seniors have told us multiple times, and we would like to give you this information. And there is another shortlisting process which most of us forget to talk about, as Deepika very kindly mentioned here, is that a lot of companies have everyone fill the form, and then we get a mail from the placement office saying, okay, they introduced a new cutoff of 8.5, which can be very disheartening. But for that to get shortlisted, try and maintain. You guys have, I think, 2 more semesters, and that can really help you push your GPA. And Deepika, since I'm taking this, I think a lot of people asked about the placement policy at PS.
Yes,
So I'll just talk about that, and then we can open questions again. So the
sure, sure.
placement policy at PS University is essentially divided into 3 tiers of companies based on the CTC that they offer you. So if it's a tier 1 company, your salary is going to be, your CTC is going to be 9 above. And when next is your tier 2 companies, that is going to be again above 5 but below 9. And then anything below 5 is going to be your tier 3 company. So now when we talk about securing jobs, so as of now from our batch, I think there was a point where people could secure 2 job opportunities at a point. Now you can also do that. I am so sorry for the background noise if you can hear it. But so if you have a tier 1 job, you're completely blocked from sitting for any other company that comes, even if it's a tier 1 company. Now if you secure a tier 2 job, then you can accept it, but you can also sit for a tier 1 job. And then again, similarly, if you have a tier 3 job, you're allowed to sit for a tier 2 and a tier 1. So that's how it works. So now again, in tier 1, it's again going to be 9 above, and your creamy layer, I mean, creamy is going to be again a CTC of 45. But usually, I think for most of the tier 1 companies, the base pay is usually the same. So, I think before focusing on the placement policy, so this is what I've explained to you. Just see what the company is also offering and the role, if they match up to what you actually want to work on. I think that's very important, because I have a couple of friends who did not accept a company or did not even sit for their placements because that's not a role that excites them. So I think that also comes into play. So I think this is the placement policy. If you guys have any doubts, please feel free to write it in the chat. And Deepika, over to you.
Right. Thanks. So maybe Sharanya, you can take this question. How do you get started with preparing for internships in your second year? For the third year summer, how do you get started preparing for those internships?
Right. Okay. So that's a very general question that anybody.
One second. Also, before you just start answering generically, I think a couple of people have asked exactly what coding platforms did you use, and how do you actually get started with solving the different levels of easy, medium, hard questions on Lead Code.
Okay, great. So the first thing to note is that there are various groups into which these coding problems fall into. They could be something as simple as something basic that you learn, like a linked list, like just implementing a linked list. And they could be something as complex as something called greedy approach and dynamic programming and so on. So the main thing is to start off with something super simple, start off with basic data structures, go back to your third and fourth sem notes, try to understand what is the size of integer, what is the size of long, and really basic stuff like that, so you get a better understanding of what exactly your data structures are. So once you've finished this kind of a basic approach of data structures, you do questions on arrays, you do questions on linked lists, queues, and stacks, which are very fundamental. Then you can move on to like a slightly more complex domain, like greedy approaches and dynamic programming and so on. There are a lot of sites that actually do this in a very systematic way. And the one main site that I found really helpful, which I use till date, is Geeks for Geeks. Geeks for Geeks has the solutions for almost all coding problems, not even kidding. And you can also filter according to your difficulty level, according to the company that you want to see the questions of. And there are a lot of filtering options that are available that you can use. Even you can do a topic wise filtering. And there are like a lot of good programming questions there which you can try on, and also the solutions are available. So that would definitely be like one of the best places to start. But for people who are inclined towards coding from the beginning and they have been coding all their life, like from first year, then I think Lead Code is a better place for them, because Lead Code offers a lot of competitive coding programs which are slightly of a higher scale than that offered by Geeks for Geeks. So there's also this other site called Interview Bit, I guess, and that is also pretty good. I've heard my friends have used that. So these are the three sites that I recommend.
Thanks, Sharanya. There's one more question that has come in, and I think I was supposed to talk about this, but I didn't. Are interviews scary? Okay. So, firstly, in your first interview, yes, it's really scary, at least for me. Okay. So, the funny story that I was talking about is Richa and I were both we both got an interview at Grow. Okay. I was the second interviewee for that day, and I went in and I was really scared. I didn't even have my resume on me because I was that naive. I didn't know I was supposed to take my own resume to the interview, and I was running up and down trying to get a printout, and outside that, near Sutta Gali and all, I was trying. But anyway, the point is, I went in, I was completely flustered. I sat down, and she smiles at me, and she's like, "Hi, introduce yourself." This is like the standard opening line any interview will have. I open my mouth and I say, good morning. I'm Deepika, and I'm here for this interview. Full stop. Like, that's it. And I just keep looking at her blankly. Okay. And I just want to give you some context. I want to tell you that I am supposedly one of the good debaters in Karnataka or whatever. And there I was completely tongue-tied. I really didn't know what to say. Okay. So that was how my first interview went. It was a complete flop show. So it is pretty scary for the first time. So there's a quick tip here. There's actually a website called Pramp, okay, PRAMPP. So Pramp is a website where you can schedule interviews with random strangers around the world with respect to topics like behavioral interview questions, system design questions, DSA, which is data structures, algo, and so on. And this is what this website is something that actually helped me overcome this, tongue-tied kind of behavior that I experienced when I first sat in my interview. I did exactly one Pramp interview, and that also went pretty badly because I was really nervous and I was sweating and all of that. But that one interview itself was more than enough to help me understand the points that all the panelists so far, like Sharanya, Richa, and all, have been saying, is just to stay calm during the interview and be friendly towards them. So if you do that, interviews automatically become more of a friendly interaction rather than an interview where they're trying to grill you and prove to you that you know nothing. So that is one point that I wanted to bring out. Cool. So next, I have a question for Niharika. What is the process to publish a research paper, and what organizations approve or publish papers?
Okay. So the process of publishing papers is quite long, and I kind of planned it beforehand. So, like, once you have your results ready for your research work, you usually start looking up for conferences, and you should be extremely careful while choosing your conferences. And the first probably question is like, which conference to apply for. So I would say that choose conferences that fall into the domain of your research, and check which publisher who's publishing your work, and which publisher the conference is tied up with, because this really matters. And I would encourage you to look up for conferences whose publishers are Springer and IEEE. And it also and stuff like whether the conference is international, national, or regional also does matter, and the number of times the conference has taken place. So once you've narrowed down the conference that you want to apply for, pick one and apply it. And while doing all of this, you should start framing your paper. Like, I used the online tool Overleaf for all my paperwork, and I would also suggest you to, document all the work while doing your research, because, it's usually time consuming and challenging, especially if you worked on projects for almost a year. So if you document your work beforehand, they start to help, they come handy at the time when you write your paper. So when everything is ready, once everything is set, you submit your work, and all you have to do is just wait for the response. But from the conference side, if you see, they're reviewing your papers. There are like a bunch of reviewers who understand the work you've done, like the research behind it, and give, like, comments, feedback, and reviews on it. And if your paper is accepted, you're expected to make these changes and revert back. So the final stage of this entire process is, to present your work at the conference in front of a panel who is like, who completely know what you have worked on, who have read your research, and they are ready to shoot questions at you. So uh, so this is like the general process for any application for your conferences. And once it's approved, the publisher that is tied up with the conference usually publishes your work. And yeah, usually in like a book, a journal, or it's indexed in Google Scholar. Yeah, I think this is like the overall publishing, uh, step-by-step publishing way.
Okay, thanks, Niharika. Do you have any specific way in which you can decide what conference would be good to publish your paper in, or is that something your mentor tells you?
Actually, the mentor suggestion is very much required here. Usually they tell you, they have some experience in this, right? So they'll tell you, like, they suggest the kind of conferences you should look for, and what kind of conferences will help you, actually publish the work. So such things always do help you. And also, while checking for criteria for which conferences to apply for, you can always keep in mind, like, the research work that you've done, and the level of conference that you're applying for, like whether it's a tier 1 conference or a tier 2 conference. And what if the conferences are kind of backed up by some companies or some big universities, like, so all of these, aspects, like, come into picture while applying for a conference.
Right. Thanks, Niharika. I'll be asking one more question to Anagha, and then Richa, you can take over.
Okay.
So, Anagha, we have a question here. What are some of the companies you'd recommend to applying for off-campus placements, and how do I get started preparing for the tests and interviews? Also, quick note, there is no such rule that if you have gotten a company on campus, you're forbidden from doing anything off-campus. What is off-campus stays off-campus. What is on-campus stays on campus. I just wanted to make that clear. Okay,
As long
Anagha,
as you keep it that way. That's very important. Go ahead.
Yeah. So off campus, some of the companies that I had applied for off campus are Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Cisco. If I'm not wrong, all the companies open up off campus recruitments before they come on campus. And every company on their main page, they'll have a jobs a link on their page. So once you register on their jobs page, you give them your email ID, and you can choose to get updates about any new openings in either the roles that you can select or for all roles. So I think that's a good thing to do if you want to stay updated about any new openings in a company. And you'll get email updates if a software engineer position opens up, or a software engineer intern position opens up. So another good thing to do is to follow companies on LinkedIn, and just follow the official websites, because there are going to be a lot of websites that post sort of scam links saying that comment on this and we'll refer you to that internship. But I'd recommend looking at the official page of the companies. So that's one way you can keep yourself updated with off-campus internships. And our college, there is PES. For Microsoft, actually, our college, one of the professors in our college, Professor Chana Bankapur, had sent us an email about the Microsoft off-campus off-campus internship. And this is, that's how I got to know about it. But I also have one piece of advice to offer about off-campus internships. So I would say that it's easier to get it on campus, because for Microsoft itself, there were 11,000 people all across the country who wrote the coding test. And the thing about off campus is, I wrote my online coding test at the end of September. And by the time all my interview rounds were done and I got the results, it was the end of November. So that took almost over 2 months. Whereas all this happens in a period of 2 days on campus. And on campus, you're only competing with the 700 or 1000 people who have applied for the company, but off campus, like I said, like it's a footfall of around 11,000, 12,000 people. So yeah. And how do you get started on tests and interviews? So I think first, like Sharanya gave a very detailed overview of what coding platform to pick. And in addition to that, I would say, coding, it's not a question of smartness. It's a question of how often have you practiced. Like the coding, the interviewer can ask you anything. The coding online tests can have any questions in the various topics and data structures and algorithms. And the only way to keep up with that is just practice. So, start off small, start off doing one problem every day. And once you feel more confident, you can bump it up to two problems every day, and so on. And other than that, you'll have to polish your resume. Like, I mean, a lot of all of us spoke about how it's important to include both projects as well as extracurricular activities on your resume. And one important point I wanted to add to projects is that keep your don't write a lot in your project description on your resume. The rule that I follow is write what you've done and write the results you've accomplished about it. Don't write how you've done your project. So this way, the person who's going through your resume is intrigued to see how you've done the project. They're impressed by your results, and the idea is to impress them to the level that they actually want to call you for an interview to understand how you've done your project and to learn more about the project you've done. And interviews, like Deepika said, going on interview bit offers online interviews, and Deepika mentioned Pramp. What I did is I never went through these mock interviews. I would practice thinking out loud. So while solving a coding problem on an online platform itself, I would imagine that there's someone sitting in front of me and watching me, and I would try to explain the process of doing a problem. And I would say, okay, first I'm going to initialize a stack. Oh wait, this approach is not very efficient, so let me move on to this approach. And I think that helped me. And if you're in an actual interview, this was some advice given to me by my manager at Microsoft. He said, don't stay silent for longer than 30 seconds. Whatever you do, explain it. Whatever your thought process is, explain it. Because sometimes interviewers, they don't care much about the solution that you reach. They care more about the approach that you take. And sometimes purposely, they give you questions that don't really have a fixed solution. They just want to see how you approach a problem. So, yeah, that's about
Thanks,
the.
Anagha. Yeah, those are some really great insights. Thank you so much. Richa, you can take over now.
Yes. Okay. So this question I think is for you, Deepika. So someone wants to know how you can mention your open source contribution on your resume, since you're contributing to a component and not to a huge project that you're doing on your own. So how do you mention it on your resume?
Sure. So, first thing is you don't need to mention the entire project. Okay. So, you'll have a list of contributions that you have done, right? Like if I had to contribute on on this one, what is that? Fabricator, Mercurial. So, that is basically Mercurial is some version control which Mozilla uses. It's the GitHub equivalent. Okay. So, if you're contributing to some repository on GitHub, then you will have a list of your contributions that you've done to that repository. There's some link to that. You can just figure out how to get a list of all your contributions. So just put a link to that on your resume. And maybe if you've done a lot of contributions, also mention how many bug fixes you have done or how many bugs you yourself have filed. And if you have done some mentoring work, if you've helped some newcomers, say what you did over there as well. So for me, as a Mozillian contributor, my mentors really liked my work. So they told me to create something called a Mozillian's profile. And to create that profile, you need at least two senior engineers at Mozilla to vouch for you. A vouch is basically like a recommendation, a small recommendation. So my mentors vouched for me. They gave me some recommendation talking about how they enjoyed working with me and how I'm a good mentee, something along those lines. And that is something that is pretty prestigious, at least for me as a beginner. So I linked that in my resume, and I also appeared in a bunch of contributing articles. So Mozilla publishes these articles, monthly tabular columns, which talk about who is the contributor, what is the bug they fixed, and who mentored them, and so on. So my name appeared in a couple of those places as well, and that was another link that I put. So you just need to talk about what you fixed and not the entire project as a whole.
Yes, thank you so much. I think apart from that, I think this question I can take because I think it's something a lot of people are asking. So, when you're applying off campus and when you're applying on campus, as Anagha mentioned, she was prohibited from writing her on campus interview. And it is much easier to actually land a job on campus. But when it comes to both, what do you say, off campus, please ensure to see that if the company is going to come on campus, ask the placement officer or someone else, because a lot of times you're going to be prohibited. Like, I think it happened not only for Microsoft but Intuit, and I think recently for HP, because a couple of people had worked with HP before. So you might be banned. It depends again from company to company. So I think that's one question that was out there. And let's see. A lot of people are asking me about people who are from triple E, how they can focus and land IT jobs. So if you guys have any suggestions as like beginner, I think even coding when you started in your first year was something that was completely new to even get into competitive coding. So can one of you, I think who can take this? Maybe I think Sharanya, you can take this up. Can tell us how you were introduced to coding and how someone who's not from a completely tech background, because I think first year all of us have been introduced to Python and C, at least at PS University. So can you tell us how we can start off?
Yeah, so even for me, coding doesn't come naturally. It's something that I had to work on. I think in first year was the only time I had extensive coding courses because we had Python and C. And after that, in second year, I just completely forgot about coding. I was like, okay, yeah, I've done it in first year, never got back to it. So that is something that I would recommend. Like, I regret not doing that. So start off early. Like, I think now is like a perfect time to start. Again, as I said, all the resources are available. So start with something very simple. Like, take for competitive coding. So the thing is, you're given a lot of language choices. You can write it in Java, Python, C, C++. So pick one language, I'd say. Keep Python close to you because it's very easy to like do like simple questions in Python, but always have like a strong foundation in a language like C, C++, or even Java for that matter. It'll always help because when you go to interviews, they expect you to have like a more core knowledge of C, C++, or Java. So yeah, so start with something really simple in any of these programming languages. And the only thing I'd say is don't get into the really fancy coding questions initially. You'll feel super demotivated. So do something that is very fundamental first, and then slowly build your process up there.
Yes, thank you, Sharanya. Now, also one more question for you, Sharanya. How do you pick, what profile is better? How do you decide what path to choose? And I think this is something even Sharanya, I think, and Deepika, and I think I myself would like to answer. So, Sharanya, can you start off? And then I think we can go on from Deepika, and then I'll go for it. Yes, Sharanya, please.
Yeah, so again, coming to which profile you want to choose, I think you guys are in third year, right? So third year is the actual semester, like fifth semester is the actual semester because you're being offered electives. You get to pick subjects and you actually get to like, and these subjects are very, they're divided into three different domains, like very different domains. So that's when you'll actually realize what you like and what you don't like. So I think your fifth and sixth semester is all about experimenting, about like maybe I could pick one subject from data science and see if I like that domain, and if you don't like it, move on to like an algorithmic domain or more like of a systems domain. So it's more of experimental. But there are people who are also interested in an finance or economic background. Like I know like a lot of people from my batch and even like a lot of juniors are interested in stuff like this. So that is also a really good option, because you could get into something like data analysis. There are a lot of professions that hire you as risk analyst. Like actually Goldman Sachs, one of the leading organizations, the job profile they offer you is a risk analyst. And you could even study business analytics and financial engineering. So if you have, it depends on what kind of a background you have. Like if you have a very core technical background and you want to do nothing other than CS, then I'd say that you concentrate on like the different domains that are there, like algo domain or systems domain or more of the data science ML domain. But if you think like you have like a small bias towards economics and finance, like you that interests you basically, then I think you should look for analytics domains where like the job offers involves actually like big data, cloud computing, and all of that.
Thank you so much, Sharanya. Deepika, can we have your take on this?
Yeah, sure. So, firstly, I didn't know whether. Okay, so even I was at a stage where everyone were talking about buzzwords like ML, AI, cloud computing, parallel computing. So I was wondering if I should know everything about everything, because everyone seemed to know about it. So that was a confusion. And as a second year student, I actually started off with, as a third year student, I started off with trying to explore my options. In fifth semester, I took machine learning we had machine learning, and I had Dr. Snehanshu Saha sir, who was a fantastic teacher. So I thought I'd be really interested in machine learning, and that's my like line, that's my career. And back of my mind, I also had finance in my head, because I felt like coding is not something that I could do. Data structures and algo really, it more than saying it didn't interest me, I felt like I was allergic to that. Okay, I really couldn't do it. Okay, so that's why I had maybe machine learning and some finance in the back of my head. And then when I spoke to seniors, they said, listen, even if you want to do only machine learning related thing, you can't get past data structures algo, no matter what line you want to take up with respect to engineering and computer science. You're going to have to learn data structures algo for clearing the interview rounds. So I had to somehow overcome that allergy. So that's when I probably started taking that a little bit seriously. But I think choosing the line between finance and this one, what is that, computer science, really came to me in my sixth semester with the cloud computing core course. It was a fantastic course for me, and that really changed the course of things for me, so to speak. Finance is something that I'm still interested in. I've built quite a bit of a profile in that as well, because I thought that was the line that I really wanted to pursue. But that project changed things for me, and that's when I decided I'd sit for placements as well. So it's mostly based off a personal choice. You need to decide whether you want to start working right away, or do you want to pursue your profession, whether you want to pursue your passion professionally. I mean, all of us would have spent a lot of time, effort, and money into studying a professional engineering course at in any college that we are at right now. So, if you really want to do business or marketing, then maybe now it's a bit too late to go into that hardcore. So, I would probably recommend that you go ahead and get a job right now and see what you can do with it. But of course, it's always up to you. If you think you'd be better off doing an MBA in finance or marketing, you should definitely do that. But try and build a profile for both until you've reached a stage where you're completely sure about what you really want to do, and then put all your energy into doing that. Don't try to decide too early. It's okay, you still have time till seventh semester beginning. Till then you have time. Sorry, I spoke Kannada. Okay. Next, Richa, you can take it.
Yes. I think Deepika made very valid points. And apart from that, even for me, like to start off with, I was of the track where I want to do engineering, followed by an MBA, and then I want to do a job. But I think slowly, as you get introduced to how placements work, how interviews work, is when I understood what I actually want to do. And even I started off, I love data science, and I still do. I still enjoy data science. So when I got my internship at Grow, which was for software engineering, engineering, and I think they barely had any it didn't have any data science. I didn't know if I would enjoy it. But then I had done an internship at ENY the previous summer, and that was completely like a desk job, and I was, just writing code. And I don't know if I started to question. I'm just like, am I made for a desk job? Is this what I want to do? And slowly, when I came to grow, even though it was a work from home, I absolutely enjoyed what I was doing, and I enjoyed the work culture. So I think that's where I realized that I had just, restricted myself so much, just thinking, because of that one experience, that maybe all companies are going to be the same. So just, I think, apart from just researching about how the company is, what kind of questions they ask, and if you're a kind of person who really knows that you don't want to, like, sit on a coding job, or if you don't want to, you want to do something different, look at the work culture of companies, because a lot of articles online, a lot of Quora answers, and a lot of other resources online, people talk about their work experience there, how the work culture is actually of the company, and how much are you going to benefit from that company as a fresher. And I think these three four things are very important to take into consideration, especially when you're in a crossroad between going into a completely different stream than and choosing computer science. Because sometimes what happens is you actually find passion in something that is completely, it is related to tech, but there can be a certain introduction. For example, I remember a professor in college talking to us about how a girl loved traveling, and she found a job that was tech, but involved traveling. I don't really remember the role very clearly, but that is something
Sales.
that people do. Huh?
It was a
Sorry.
sales role. Sales,
Yeah, it was a
sales.
sales role, but she was a part of the tech team, so it was a completely sales role. But even then, I think there is a lot of tech input that goes in. So she traveled with them, and she also had her own choice of stream. So that's something that goes on in the future. But as of now, even I would suggest, especially if you do not want to do a master's in something that is completely tech, and if you want to get into something that is managerial based, like a MBA or of sorts, then I suggest, and even streams like, as Ashana mentioned, like business analytics and all of that, are really finance oriented, are very interesting. But if I think it's better if you get some experience, because when it comes to stuff like business analytics, and when it comes to stuff like MBA, it's work culture, is a work experience is so important, because later that's something where you can apply, what, I worked at a corporate, this is what I was doing, and this is the knowledge that I can take back and apply and become a better manager, or become a a better analyst. So I think that's very important. And so choose it very wisely. If you're 100% sure, look for colleges and start applying. And if you're planning, to apply in India, start preparing for GATE, CAT, and all of that. But I suggest, and even Deepika, maybe prepare for a job if you completely want to go off track, because a work experience will always back you up later on also. Because say you do an MBA and you don't enjoy that also, you always have that tech experience that you can always take forward and work on later. Okay, so now my next question is for Niharika. So I think Niharika is one of the people here who started coding the earliest apart from Anagha. And I think you have been through a lot of, I mean, I think we can all talk about our rejections and failures here with pride, because we have, gotten our opportunities. So can you just tell us on how each experience made you progress, and what did you take away, and what is something that you would like to share with the audience, so that they don't get disheartened because of rejections? Because I think all of us, as Deepika mentioned, initially feel that we're good enough and we'll crack it, but then slowly we get demotivated, we completely stop coding, we're like, this is not for us, we start thinking about other streams. So what kept you motivated? Can you please talk about that?
I feel like the environment I was in really helped me, because even at home I have like a technology enthusiast. Like my brother, he's into startups and stuff, and college as well. In that for that matter, they always encourage us to do some projects through at least capstone, mini project, and other stuff. That always kept me in check. Like I always understood the various research that's happening all around the world, the various technologies being used, and that's kind of something that motivated me into the various things that I have taken till now. And if I talk about what rejection is, I think that's something that all of us are going to get used to soon, because these come you always learn from your failures, right? So sometimes, like Sharanya and I had an experience where our interviews went amazingly well, like starting from the technical rounds to our HR rounds, everything was on, like everything was perfect, but we still got rejected. Sometimes it's good to accept that, because you have learned so much during that experience. That's number one. And second is that not all of them have get this opportunity to sit for an interview for various companies. So sometimes we need to accept that, because others, so if we have actually passed the coding route and reached the interview stage, you are something. So that's something I should always keep in mind, and never be stressed about all of this. And if you have this fear of interviews or anything of that sort, like Deepika said, prepare well, do a lot of mocks, and stand in front of the mirror, talk to yourself, be very very calm and open minded, and talk to the interviewers as a friend. So that's something that really helped me during my interviews. And I feel like rejection is something that you should accept and move on. Yeah, I guess that's it.
Thank you so much. Okay, and one more thing, I think this for you, Niharika, is when you were writing your resumes. So, did you apply with a different resume with different companies and different projects as you applied, or did you have one common resume? And how do you decide? Because I think a lot of us get confused. How to mention non-tech experience, how to mention tech experience, what to mention in a resume. So if you can brief us about that and how you applied differently for every company, or did you apply the same way?
Actually, it's a very good question. Initially, I was quite naive there, because I just applied. I had one resume and I was literally circulating that to all the companies. But later, I realized that the companies that you're applying for are completely different, and the role that you're applying for is also different. Like for example, there was a research company that came for placements earlier. It was a company that involved, it was an early stage startup, so they looked for, like, someone who's had some research and innovation experience. So that's when I restructured my resume, so that my research experience and the domains that map to the companies come in front and is highlighted, and the later experience come later. And some companies that look for technical aspects, like your past internship experiences and all that stuff, if they're looking for stuff like that, you can always have them at the beginning, so that's the first thing they see. And it's always good to showcase what you have done apart from technical stuff, like if you have participated in any conferences, or if you have been part of some of the company somehow, like if you attended one of the workshops and anything of that sort, you can always add such stuff into your resume. So I would suggest you to modify or change resume for companies, but the entire crux of the resume is always the same. I hope that answered the question.
Yes, definitely. I think a lot of us can benefit from that. Okay, Anagha, this one's for you. I think someone was talking about what kind of work did you do at Microsoft, and how did you? Was there a moment of doubt when you were deciding to take up your PPO because of the work you did? Because I think that is very important. Because I know I've heard a lot of stories where people reject their PPO because they weren't. So, what helped you make that decision?
Yeah, so the work that I did at Microsoft, so I had to develop a proof of concept for Microsoft Edge's new feature called clutter-free print. You can look it up. It mainly involved it was a browser-based project, so it involved a lot of OS concepts. So surprisingly, in the beginning, I wasn't too enthusiastic about it, but as and when you put in effort, and as and when you see small parts of your project working, and you see it all coming together, it really excited me. And that sort of coupled with me developing an interest towards what I was doing. And in the end, like, I always had an open mindset towards learning something new. And I think that helped me really enjoy my work, and both my manager and my mentor were really helpful in explaining any doubts I had. um, so coming to my PPO, this was another thing that I'd clarified with my manager. So Microsoft has this great initiative where they have like every 6 months they have this one day where you can go and work in any department of your choice. Like if you are an employee there, you can just go work in whatever department that you choose. And if you like what you're doing there, you have an opportunity to speak with the manager of that department and take up, you can choose to work in that department, either because you don't like the department that you're working in, or you just want to do something different. So I thought that's really cool. And uh, I did enjoy the work that I did in my internship. And this made me excited because I was scared that, what if once I take up a job, will I only learn OS for the next 2 years that I want to work there, or 4 years that I want to work there. But hearing this really reassured me.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. I think that goes a lot to say about the work culture about a company. Okay, I think there is one question which I would like to address. Someone is like, is it too late to start after fourth semester? I think now that you have come to the realization, it's never too late to start preparing for interviews and internships. And there is a lot of resources, a lot of these panelists have mentioned to you. So I think make good use of it. And all of us speak from our experiences and journeys, and we're not going to something worked out better for me that and something worked out better for Sharanya, and that might be completely different. So I think that you have to figure out for yourself as to what is good enough for you, and what works out better for you, because maybe some platform is better for the kind of coding you want to start off with. So I think that you can focus on, and I will leave it off to Deepika, or if there are any more questions that have to be answered, or yes, Deepika, please.
Yeah, Richa, I think you can answer this next one. What is the ACMS mentorship selection process? Can you talk about what ACMS is and how to go about it? I think you got selected for that, right?
Yes, I think three of us on this call got selected for it.
Yeah, I'm the
yeah. So yes, I will tell you about the process. So ACMS is this Amazon campus mentorship selection process that Amazon recruits a lot of women who are into coding. So it's basically again it's a mentorship process. So it's not an internship process, but it helps you land a PPI, that is a pre-placement interview opportunity at Amazon. So, what essentially the process was for us is Amazon had come to our campus and they had allowed all the people in all the women in a college, starting from whichever department you belong to. We were supposed to write a coding test, which was a proper, highly proctored test, where we had like a video and audio and mics and everything on. And after that, they shortlisted a couple of people, and that was one round of it. That's all. And they shortlisted around, I think, 30 to 40 of us. And from then, what happens during the mentorship program is you have sessions from people at Amazon who have, worked. They work at Amazon, obviously, but they help you understand the not only the interview process but also the kind of work that they're doing at Amazon, plus a lot of the important concepts that are required, and help you prepare for your placement interviews. Because when it comes to summer internships and placements, the interview process is slightly different because placement interviews are slightly harder. All right. So again, when we talk about a PPI, we're talking about placement worthy. We're talking about your 6-month internship. So that gets a little harder. So they actually had, I think, 4 sessions where each of them talked about. So one of the sessions was completely about data structures and algorithms. One of the sessions was about leadership at Amazon, and after that we had sessions on DynamoDB, and we had sessions on how to what are the kind of opportunities that we get to apply when we get into Amazon. So there were different sessions. Apart from that, there is a mentor that is given to a team. So you're formed into a teams of 5, and you're given a mentor, and your mentor basically decides a project area for you. So they're giving in a list of projects, and you're supposed to decide. They give you a project area, and based on that project area, you basically start working on it with the help of your mentor, obviously. And what usually happens with the process is it's usually on campus, like you go out, you actually go to the Microsoft Amazon office, and you have your sessions there, all these live sessions. But for us, everything was from home, everything was online. So usually we have a presentation phase for your the project that you've done, but that we couldn't have, unfortunately. So it solely depends on your mentor review of you, plus your PPI, how it goes, the interview, how it goes. So again, the interview process was basically, we had two rounds of interview. Both were technical rounds, and based on that, some people were invited for a third interview round. If I'm if I'm right or wrong, I don't. I didn't shortlist again over there, but yeah, they were called for a third interview round, and based on that, they were offered 6-month internships. And if they really liked the candidate, they were offered 6 months plus this. So how you can start preparing for it is, again, this is a very base. I remember, I think there were a bunch of MCQs, and I think there were one or two coding questions. I think you can look up the process. There are interview experiences on Geek for Geeks, but it's again based on solely on your CS concepts. So conceptually, you're supposed to be very thorough, and since it's a proctored test, there is no you can't really, and it was from home, so there is no scope of, again, malpractice and all of that, because with MCQs, you tend to, like, people do that. I mean, even during placements, but always, yeah, focus on conceptual learning and application based learning than focusing on doing thousands of hundreds of problems online, because that's where it comes into place. Because whenever you're asked a question, even on, say, for ACMS or any other coding test, it's always going to be an application of something you've done, maybe changing a few values. So if you're the kind of person who mugs up a bunch of things, there's nothing similar that is going to be asked. And that is the hard truth, unless, you're absolutely lucky. So yes, I think that was the Amazon process that we had. And I think that was very beneficial. And that was a huge, I think, plus one even on our resumes, because it was a huge, I think it was around 6 to 7 months of a project that we'd worked with them, and we had interacted with them. I think all of us only missed out on going to the Amazon offices and actually having the sessions and meeting people live, which is kind of restrictive. So yes, I think that's all. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, to
Thanks.
just add on to what
Sure.
Richa said. Yeah, to just add on to what Richa said, I think like in those 4 or 5 months that we worked under them, we were working directly on their technologies, and even like our mentors were super involved, and they were like, completion of the project is not important, but learning the technology is important. I remember like he made me give presentations about the different technologies available in Amazon for one straight week. So it was learning wise, it was a really good opportunity. Just a little sad that we didn't get through the interviews, but other than that, it was a really good opportunity.
Cool. Thanks, Sharanya. Thanks, Richa. I have a lot of questions regarding open sourcing over here, so I think I'll take that. First one is, how should one start preparing to get selected into GSOC 2021? Just want to say I'm really not qualified to answer this question, because I have not done GSOC, nor have I done Outreachy. Outreachy applications are, I think, open right now, but I haven't actually done any of those internships yet. So maybe we can have further seminars. If you guys really enjoyed this one, please feel free to write that in the feedback form that we'll be sharing with you. And we'll soon have panelists who will be able to answer this question as well. There's one more which asks me, which is better, Outreachy or a GSOC? So GSOC is infinitely more competitive because it involves anyone across the world who is an undergrad student. Outreachy is mostly for, it's not for undergrads, but it's mostly for the underrepresented communities in technology, which is cis and trans women, queer, LGBTQ community, and all of them. So Outreachy and GSOC are both equally prestigious programs. The target mentees that they want to reach are just a bit different, and the timelines are also a bit different. Outreachy has two application spots or something. So they basically, there's a northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. Northern hemisphere can only apply for this internship in the first half of the year, which is, I think, March, and the southern hemisphere can only apply in this slot, which is ongoing right now, September September slot. So these are a couple of points that you can look up online if you are really interested in this. We can definitely have another session with people, seniors that we have who actually did take part in the whole GSOC process and got selected into these prestigious internships as well. So that's from me. And I think there's one more question that I'll take before I move on to the other panelists. How do you maintain mental health and how do you not crack under pressure? Okay, so this is something that I think I'm extremely qualified to answer, not because I'm a professional, psychiatrist, but because while all my friends who are currently panelists with me today actually were experiencing successes, all of them, like you heard, actually went through and got selected as ACMS mentees. They all landed internships. They all had research papers. I literally had nothing. Okay. So it was a lot of stress for me. I will openly admit that I have cried a bunch of times because of how not just how happy I felt for them, but also because how dumb I felt. Okay. So this is some kind of an imposter syndrome that someone else has also asked about. How do you get through the phase of imposter syndrome during competitive in a competitive environment? So any environment that you step in is going to be competitive, and imposter syndrome is something that is going to stay with you until you somehow manage to overcome it. So trust me, I think I still have that. I still don't know how I don't know if I'm still qualified enough to maybe answer this question in terms of the technicalities of it, but how you manage mental health will probably have to be putting yourself, all your effort into upskilling yourself. Upskilling is really important, especially when you don't have an internship. A lot of people have asked, if I'm in my 5th semester, am I too late? I'm in my 6th semester, am I too late? No, you're not too late. Just make sure that even though maybe you have a lesser GPA, someone has asked, I have a 7 GPA cutoff, will I get an internship? I'd hate to break it to you, but on campus, it's the chances of you getting an internship on campus are really hard. But off campus, you will stand a really good chance if you do some really kick-ass projects, right? So upskilling yourself is a very, very important thing. And that is what I did during the entire lockdown process. I put all my mind and effort into HP. I put all my effort into Mozilla open sourcing. And I put a lot of effort into a couple of side projects that I did. And I think once I did that, I got a bit of confidence about how good my resume looked. And, I looked at a couple of resumes online, my seniors' resumes as well. So once you do some stuff that you're actually proud of, you'll be able to overcome that stress of feeling really dumb compared to your friends who are seemingly, getting offers everywhere, right? So the one way you can do that is really just upskill yourself, figure out what area you want to really work in. And if you want to cry and talk it out to someone, just do it. It's okay. You can always approach a senior. We even have a WhatsApp group. I think all of us are really friendly people. Okay. We don't bite and stuff. So you can just contact one of us as well. We were exactly where you are right now. Some of my friends have still not gotten placed. They, I'm sure, are feeling happy for their friends who've gotten placed, but they are feeling kind of bad about themselves. It's a completely natural feeling, and it's totally okay to cry it out and talk to someone about it and tell them your fears and seek help from some, your parents, your family, maybe some professor that you really trust. And if you need professional help, so be it. There's no shame in that. So just understand that it's okay to feel the pressure. It's okay to feel the stress, and it's completely okay if you still don't get an internship. Okay. I really hope all of you do become like the other panelists here today, and you're not like me, suffering till the last second. But if you do end up like me, that's still okay, as long as you manage to keep your head on your shoulders and you just don't fall into some depressed state. I hope that doesn't happen. And if you think you're going there, then immediately try and seek help from somewhere. Okay, it's completely all right. Okay, so that's that. Okay, maybe I can talk to Anagha next. Is C or Python good enough? Do I need to learn C++ or Java? Why?
So I don't have much experience with Java. I can speak for C, C++, and Python. Python is definitely an easier language to code in, because once you have the logic solid in Python, it's really easy to translate it to code. But however, Python takes a lot of runtime. and you might not end up passing that many test cases when it comes to online tests. I personally have never faced problems coding in Python during interviews, but I have heard people who have had interviewers who prefer them writing code in C or C++. C is also a good language, but the thing about C is if you have to implement something as simple as a stack, you need to write your own push pop functions and like peep functions and all of that. So that's why I started learning C++, only the basics. So C++ has these standard libraries which make it really easy, that have inbuilt functions for stacks, queues, and hash tables, everything. So C++ is kind of like that sweet spot between Python and C, wherein it's faster in terms of runtime, but it also gives you the advantage of these inbuilt libraries just like Python. So I definitely recommend learning C++. Uh, yeah, that's about it.
Thanks. One more question we have is who reviews your resume and how do we get resume reviews? Maybe Niharika, do you want to take this one? Niharika, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question? I kind of lost the connection here.
Okay, sure. Who reviews your resume? How do we get resume reviews? I'm not sure whether this is the practice part of it or whether it happened the HR part of it. So just answer both the questions.
Oh, okay. So if you're talking from the HR perspective, you're if you're asking about like how your resume is going to get shortlisted and stuff, that's the question, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so how see it completely depends on how you kind of stand outside, or how you're an outlier when you're compared to the other competitors. Like it could be in terms of the projects that you've done, or the experience that you have, or something a company personally is looking for into a candidate, and you probably have that. So there are various categories through which various criteria through which a company would shortlist your resume, if that was the question. And what was the other half?
How do you get your resumes reviewed?
Um Not quite sure of what this question exactly means, but if you're trying to make your own resume and you want to know if this is actually right or wrong, what should I put in, what not to put in, am I writing, is this like too long, or etc. etc. I feel like you should approach your peers, approach your friends, and see what they have done, where they are making their own resumes and how they are building it, what online tools they're using to make all of this, and probably follow the same procedure. But most importantly, have your resumes reviewed from parents, or someone who's into this domain, like into this technology domain and placements and stuff. Like they'll have like a better experience, and probably they might give you more insights as in how to build your resume. And there are like so many courses, I guess, out there where they actually tell how to build your resumes, and that's something that I would recommend you to watch if you're completely puzzled on how to start with. And once you have your resume built and stuff, it's good to give out to people and hear back from them, and use such feedbacks and make required changes in your resume. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, definitely it did. Also, like Anagha is telling us, ask seniors for feedback. It could be us, it could be someone that you already know in college. So they will probably have more experience. So you should probably ask your seniors as well. So I think we have covered most of the questions which are over here. One more is Anagha, I have two questions for you. Can a non-CS student crack Microsoft and Google? And how many questions did you practice in for fifth STEM on-campus opportunities?
Coming to the first part, I believe that yes, a non-CS person can crack interviews for Microsoft or any other company, given that they practice DS and algorithms very religiously for around 6 months at least. Because at the time I started preparing, though I was in CS, I didn't really feel like I had an edge over the other branches simply because I lacked practice. So yeah, I mean, it all starts with starting. I mean, it also begins with starting to practice coding seriously. You can look up Geeks for Geeks interview bit, understand concepts. If you can, you can probably buy a course that helps you with it. So yeah, and how many questions, I actually haven't kept track because I was practicing on multiple platforms. I was really confused. I do questions on Geeks for Geeks, I do questions on Lead Code, I do questions on Hacker Rank. Uh, so think I have, I think I covered somewhere around 50 questions, but like that's just a rough estimate. And Google actually expects you to cover at least 100 questions on Lead Code. So I'd say try to practice 50 to 100 if you have time more. But it really, like, I think even Richa mentioned this earlier, it really depends upon your conceptual understanding rather than like the number of questions that you've practiced. If you feel like you need to practice 20 questions at one topic, do it. If you feel like one question is enough for that topic, do it. But it depends upon the level of confidence that you have in that topic.
Sure. One more question. Once you get an offer, would you be informed about the kind of work you'll be doing in the company? I think Sharanya can take this question with respect to Samsung.
Yeah, so most likely, if you're interning with a company for a particular role, your offer would also be in that role itself. But that's also not very restrictive. So once you're offered your placement offer, you can always join in that role, and then in a few months, shifts are always possible. So it's not a very restrictive thing. But I guess that's about it. Like whichever role you intern in, most likely you get that role for your placement.
Yes, and I would like to add on to that. Usually, a lot of companies come for software development. So when you some internships, you're usually not going to be revealed as to what you're going to be working on. You can just ask them during your interviews, what kind of technology they work on and all of that. But later, as you go for your main placements, companies usually come and they specify a very, a role, and you can probably research on the company and see what work they're doing and see if that aligns with what you want to do. And yeah, so that's something. So I don't think prior to I mean, I knew what technologies Grow uses before I started my internship, but I didn't know what I would be working on. But they usually give us a choice. So I got a choice. Some don't. I'm not sure about the rest of them, but I was given a choice. I think even Sharanya had a choice between what she had to choose. So it really depends from company to company, and I don't think from our experience we can comment on the companies that we've worked on, but we can't really comment on the rest. So yes.
But like I think commonly there are four like roles that are usually offered. So the most common in software companies is your software engineering role. That's the role that most
Correct.
for. Then you have a software testing role. So in a testing role, it's more Python oriented. Like the software developers already made an application, and your job is to ensure that the application is working fine. So you write testing codes in Python to try to find faults in that particular application. So that's another domain. Then the role that I interned in was a research and development intern. So in companies that are huge research bases like HP itself and Samsung, they have an R&D department. So you will be essentially working on, in Samsung, I worked on features that were going to be released in the future phones that they were going to be releasing. So that's another role. And I think fourth, like banking companies like Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, they offer you an analyst role where it's more related to data analytics. So essentially, till now, the roles that I've come across is these four.
Right. Thanks, Sharanya. Thanks, Richa. Richa, before I hand it over to you, I think we've covered 95% of all the questions that have been asked to us. I'm just going to do a quick rapid fire kind of a thing, yes, no kind of a thing before I hand it over to you for further closing remarks. Should I have completed at least one internship before the beginning of placements in 2021? No, not necessary. But if you haven't done it, then you should probably work on upskilling yourself or putting your energy into open sourcing, because that's a pretty significant thing that you can add on your resume. How important is it to get a summer internship from the point of getting placed in final year? Does experience matter a lot during placements? It's again going to be very relative. If you have 4 people who are vying for the role of a full-time offer at a big company, like let's say Walmart Labs, then Niharika would have probably had a much higher advantage over me because of all the internships and research papers she had done. But because of the upskilling I did for myself during the summer, I think I stood a fair chance as well, which is why both of us landed the offer. So it's more of a relative term with respect to the people you're competing against. All of you seem to have some notable corporate or research experience. Do you think that's a major differentiating factor in the in-campus internship processes? So for shortlisting into the online coding round, it doesn't, your resume really doesn't matter. But post that in the interview rounds, especially in the hiring manager round or the HR round, it really does matter because, like I said, again, it's all about relative experience with respect to your competitors. What technical knowledge should you know before applying to CS internships? This is, again, quite a vague question. So maybe you can look up resumes of people who have done, who are at really good roles right now. We can definitely have another session about how to build your LinkedIn profile and what your resume should look like, not from us, but from people who have a lot of experience, maybe our seniors and so on. What companies come for summer internships in third year? This will actually be released by the placement office, but for us, there was Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, Microsoft, Intuit. Anything else, Richa? Do you remember? Grow.
Yeah, Grow had
Samsung.
come, and then Goldman Sachs, I think, yeah, it covers all of them, and a couple were going to come, but they couldn't make it. So I think, yeah.
Yeah, so these companies came
Target.
for us in November. Sorry?
Target had also come.
Target also. So these companies came in November for us. It stopped during December final exams. It commences again in January and goes up to maybe another 2 months extension maximum. But the number of companies will start decreasing post your fifth semester and beginning of your sixth semester. What kind of projects and how many projects are necessary? Again, quite a vague question. What kind of projects and all would probably determine on your interest and what area of work that you're applying for and what companies are looking for. How many projects are necessary? How many ever you can fit into your resume along with all your other work. So there's no hard and fast number for this. How hard is it to get into Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley for an average student? It's equally hard for everyone. It really, a lot of times your interviews depends on luck. It depends on what kind of question you've gotten, but it mostly depends on how well prepared you are, like all the panelists have been telling you so far. So even if you're an average student, below average student, excellent student, it really doesn't matter. It's all about the practice and the way you present yourself to the interviewing panel. How do we build a good and attractive resume? Perhaps we can have this in our next session, should you choose to give us a good feedback, hopefully. What is your suggestion to those who don't have proper internship experience in first and second year? What kind of projects should you focus on? Again, it's mostly dependent on your interests. And if you don't have a good internship in first and second year, don't worry about it. Just put all your effort into maybe doing a good mini project of your own or a hobby project. Approach a good professor, approach a good mentor. Try and figure out what works best for you. Work on good projects. Your internship in your first and second year doesn't really matter that much. How did you guys manage all the interview prep and the effort that fifth semester demands? Honestly, fifth semester is not as hard as it sounds compared to the sixth semester, and it gets harder in the placement process as well. So it's all about good time management and get plenty of sleep, drink a lot of water, try and get some exercise. I sound like a mom right now, but I think that is pretty important to maintain your mental health and stuff like that. So it's just manage your time well, manage your projects well, and you will have enough time for interview preparation. Is it too late to start after fourth sem? Come on, man. Fourth sem is the best time to start. You'll be a really early starter if you start in fourth sem. I started after sixth sem, after failing, and I still made it, right? So it's all about how much effort and dedication you put into whatever role it is that you want. What are on-campus placement opportunities in IT for EEE students? I mean, we don't really have much experience about that. Like I mentioned in the beginning, we are all computer science students and we are only drawing from our own experiences. In the future panels, should you choose to give us good feedback again, we will definitely have people from other departments who are in good companies as well. In third sem, should we focus more on projects or competitive coding? A lot of people would probably say competitive coding would give you a good edge. I'd also add that projects would really help. So maybe both work in tandem with each other. Personally, I never did any competitive coding and I suffered for it. So I'd really recommend that you guys get started with competitive coding early on. What is the process to land summer internship for third year summer? This has actually been covered before. I shouldn't have probably read this out. So that marks the end of all the questions that have ever been asked to us in the live session and the previous session as well. Thank you so much for coming. I will leave it to Richa to give the final closing statements. But honestly, I really hope all of you enjoyed this session. I hope you all learned from our failures. I know we all have landed maybe 1 or 2 job opportunities maximum, and there are a lot of people with a lot more experience out there, and we'll definitely try to have them on our panel next time as well. This was just our duty we felt as seniors to try and help out our juniors in the best way possible, drawing from our own experiences, and we hope you don't repeat the same mistakes that we did, and we hope you got something out of this big discussion. Okay, so thank you so much. Richa, over to you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Deepika. And after that, thank you so much, Niharika, Sharanya, Anagha, for your time. Because honestly, it takes a lot of effort to even put in time for all these things given our busy schedules. But apart from that, thank you all of you for joining and for such intriguing questions. And honestly, all of these questions, there's so many questions I wish I would have asked when I was in my third sem, which you guys have asked. And I hope we have answered them up to mark. And apart from that, we have a feedback form which will be sent to you by Harita on our chat. So please fill it up. I mean, I think there were around 200 easy, 200 plus people who attended this session. I'm not sure because I'll have to check the views later. But please fill the feedback form. It will be really helpful for us as well as you, because we want to know from you as to where you're interested and what is the next episode that we can bring up for placement tales. First one was for the prep. Now we have a lot planned, but we would love to hear from you as to what you guys want so that we can bring it to you as quick as possible. And sorry for all the technical difficulties that we had in the beginning with respect to the lag. I hope you could hear us, and I hope you had some really good key takeaways from this. And please mention them in the feedback form also. And apart from that, thank you all. Thank you so much for attending the session. I hope you had fun. I hope all the panelists had fun. So thank you guys for coming. And thank you, Swanaja, for constantly sitting and looking at us and listening to us talk. She's the one who's been streaming the entire video throughout. Thank you, Harita, for putting out all the questions and so that we could answer them easily. She's been giving us the questions separately from you guys, and we have been answering them. And that's why Deepika could find it so easy to answer all your questions at the end. So thank you so much. And you have been like wonderful. And we hope to have more interactive sessions. But because of the number of people who applied, being more than 300, I think because our WhatsApp group was overfilled, we couldn't accommodate a lot. But I hope this live streaming actually helped. And thank you so much for being here. And I hope you have a great night. I think we were going to finish this in 45 minutes, but I think all of you guys had such wonderful questions, we couldn't wrap it up. So thank you so much. Any closing words to the panelists? And
One
then I think,
last
yes,
thing
go
that
for
I
it,
want to
Niharika.
say that the initiative that the three of you have taken, or the Changemakers Society have taken, is amazing. I'm not sure if we had when we were like in third year or second year. I'm for sure that our juniors would have taken so much out of it, because if at all I had such a thing when I was a junior, I'm sure I would have taken so much from it. So thank you guys for having us here.
Thank you so much, Niharika.
Yeah, I'd also say a big thank you for having us here. And I hope our experience helped you guys in some way. Maybe, I hope it didn't stress you out though. One main thing I want to say is, like, as Deepika constantly mentioned, I think it's all about relaxing and believing in yourself. And one of the most important things in this semester, especially, is to have really good friends and close friends, because they're the ones who will actually help you get through it. Because sometimes it'll be so exhausting. All you want to do is just go talk to someone. So I'm so glad that almost everyone in this panel have been there for me, like, throughout my semesters, and we share like a really close bond. So I'm really glad I had that. So I hope you guys also have that, and just relax. It's fine. It's fine even if you don't get an internship. It's not the end of the road, and good things will happen eventually. So it's completely okay.
Yes, thank you so much, Sharanya.
Yeah, I
And
also wanted to say something.
go for
Once
it.
again, thank you, Richa, Deepika, Swaduja, and Harita for organizing this so smoothly. And one more thing I'd like to add is, due to this whole COVID situation, the times right now are really unprecedented. So you should cut yourself some slack. Companies might hire lesser people. So, don't beat yourself up over it too much. And just keep faith and keep your head down and focus on what you love doing, and things will eventually work themselves out.
Yes, I agree. And also, yeah, remember not to take a lot of stress. I think Deepika has mentioned this a lot. And keep in touch with your friends, keep talking to them, keep yourself motivated, and, just, interview each other. You're at a very, I feel like that way you're at a good state where you are actually using online platforms, interview each other. And actually, when you get on fun calls, maybe, take a small part of out of it and interview each other, talk about the questions you've done, maybe do group studying also. That also works, group coding, because I think online it works out best for you guys. Maybe you can code together, and that also helps build confidence. And I know a lot of people who have done that and have succeeded. So yeah, try doing that. And there are a lot of brilliant ways you can do. In fact, if you have certain suggestions, drop it in our feedback form, and we'll actually put it out if we can. And thank you so much for attending this. I think we're way beyond time, and it's dinner time for most of us. So thank you guys for being here. I hope you had a wonderful session. And this live stream will be here. We'll also be uploading it on our CMS page. We couldn't do it right now due to some technical issues, but thank you so much. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Happy learning. Have fun. Don't stress. And take your time. You're at home. You're actually saving up on a lot of traveling time for all of those people who travel from really far. So maybe take out 30 minutes per day. Start off with that and start slow. And thank you so much, guys. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.
Swanuja, end the live stream.
I ended it.
Oh, okay, okay. Peace. Whew.